Karoline thought she was walking into another debate she could dominate, until Jasmine slid a piece of paper across the table that flipped the entire conversation and the country on its head. It happened just after 8:40 a.m. on a Thursday. The panel was already tense. 4 people on set, 3 cameras rolling, and a producer in the control room who later admitted they felt something was about to blow. Jasmine Crockett sat calmly, lips pressed together, pen in hand. She wasn't fidgeting, she wasn't defensive, she was ready. Karoline Leavitt, on the other hand, had been steamrolling the conversation for nearly 10 minutes, talking over the moderator, pivoting from question to question like it was a game show. She came in hot and condescending, throwing pointed jabs at Crockett, most of them subtle, some of them not. And then it happened. The moderator turned to Jasmine and asked, "Congresswoman Crockett, do you have a response to that?" Jasmine didn't blink. She looked straight at Karoline and said, "Sure, but before I respond to her opinion, I think we should talk about the real reason she's so loud about mine." The panel went quiet. Jasmine reached into a folder, one that had been sitting on her lap the whole time, and pulled out a single sheet of paper. She held it up briefly, then handed it to the moderator. "This is an internal memo," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Circulated 2 weeks ago. Her campaign team signed off on it. It outlines a strategy targeting minority female representatives, not based on policy, but on tone. Their goal? Paint us as aggressive, unhinged, and irrational, especially when we push back." Karoline's mouth opened, but no words came. Jasmine continued, "It wasn't supposed to go public, but someone sent it to me. I didn't say anything before because I wanted to be sure it was real. And now that I am, well, I figured if we're going to have this conversation on TV, let's have all of it." Karoline snapped. "You're lying," she spat. "You're lying, and this is a setup. You planned this." Her voice cracked. She wasn't in control anymore. She looked to the moderator, who was frozen, then to the producers off camera. She stood up briefly, then sat down again, like she didn't know what her body was doing. "You think you can smear me with some fake piece of paper?" Karoline shouted. "You're trying to play the victim, again." But Jasmine didn't flinch. "I'm not playing anything," she said. "I'm just reading what your team wrote about people like me. And if that makes you uncomfortable, you should probably ask why it was written in the first place." The panel descended into chaos. The moderator tried to regain control. One of the producers cut to commercial, but the damage was already done. Karoline was still yelling as the screen faded out. But what the audience at home didn't see, the part that would go viral within minutes, was the 14 seconds of raw studio footage that got leaked shortly after. It showed Karoline ripping off her mic, pacing in circles, cursing under her breath. She turned to one of the producers and hissed, "She set me up. She knew I couldn't defend that without looking guilty." And maybe that was the point. By 10 a.m., the clip was everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, cable news, even morning radio in Cleveland. People weren't just reacting to Karoline's meltdown. They were reacting to the moment someone finally said what so many had felt for years, that some attacks don't come from disagreement, they come from strategy. But the real story didn't start here. It started a few days earlier, long before any cameras were turned on. 5 days earlier, Jasmine Crockett sat at a small cafe in downtown Des Moines, Iowa. Not exactly the center of national politics, but that's where she liked to meet with her old friend, Shelby Barnes. Shelby wasn't in politics, never had been, but she had a gift for reading people, and that day, she didn't sugarcoat it. "Karoline's not just poking at you, Jazz. She's laying bait," Shelby said, stirring her coffee. "She wants you to snap. That's the plan." Jasmine leaned back in her chair. "I know," she sighed, "but I'm not playing that game. She wants a show. I'm not giving her one." But she was already thinking deeper. It wasn't the first time Karoline had gone after her, not even the 10th. Their history was layered, complicated by the way Karoline carried herself, smug, poised for a soundbite, constantly playing to the cameras. They'd sat across from each other before in hearings, town halls, even off-the-record dinners in D.C., but Karoline never missed a chance to talk down to her. 2 weeks earlier, Jasmine had heard whispers, rumors of a private strategy call among Leavitt's team. Nothing solid, just word of mouth. The kind of stuff you file away and watch out for. But then an anonymous email landed in Jasmine's inbox. No subject line, no text, just an attachment. A PDF marked draft messaging memo, internal use only. She didn't open it right away. In her line of work, you learn to be skeptical. Could be a hoax, a trap, a misdirect. But 3 days later, she had the document verified through a contact at the network. It was real. Inside was exactly what she feared. A strategy built on discrediting her not with logic, but with language. It described targeting Crockett and others like her with coded attacks designed to trigger certain reactions. The memo suggested pushing them to the edge emotionally, then framing their reactions as unprofessional. Let them lose their cool, one line read, and the audience will fill in the rest. Jasmine didn't show it to anyone right away, not even her chief of staff. She just kept reading it over and over until the words felt like venom soaking through her skin. But what bothered her more than the memo itself was the tone, the cold calculation behind it. It wasn't just politics. It was personal. And it wasn't just about her. It was about anyone who looked or sounded like her. Any woman who'd been told she was too loud, too emotional, or too angry. That was the real play. By Sunday night, Jasmine had made a decision. If Karoline wanted to play this game on live television, then fine. But the rules would be different this time. Jasmine wasn't going to raise her voice. She wasn't going to get baited. She was going to stay grounded, speak facts, and let the truth be the thing that screamed. Her team didn't know the whole plan. She told them she'd handle the panel on her own. "Trust me," she said calmly. "I've got this." By Monday, the media buzz had already started. The upcoming panel was being teased on the network's social channels. Two of the most outspoken voices on opposite ends lived this Thursday. Viewers expected a sparring match. The producers were probably hoping for fireworks. And Karoline? She thought it would be her moment to shine. But she didn't know Jasmine had something in her back pocket. Something that would make it impossible to hide behind smirks and sound bites. But Jasmine wasn't just going to respond. She was going to expose. And the day she chose to do it, that was no accident. Thursday morning came with a layer of calm that didn't match what was about to happen. The studio was located in Scottsdale, Arizona, neutral ground for both guests, picked mostly for convenience and production logistics. Jasmine arrived 20 minutes early. She always did. Not for makeup or prep, but to feel the space, to sit, breathe, and remind herself why she does this. She didn't talk much when she arrived, just greeted the crew with a warm smile and sat in the green room, flipping through her notes. But the folder, that plain navy folder she brought in with her, never left her lap. Karoline arrived a few minutes later, trailed by her media consultant and an assistant carrying iced coffee and a spare blouse in a garment bag. She was in high gear, laughing loud, talking fast, already working the makeup room like it was a campaign stop. She glanced at Jasmine once, then looked past her like she wasn't there. "Is she always this quiet before panels?" one of the junior producers asked, not even trying to whisper. Jasmine heard it. She didn't respond. She just kept reading her notes, calm and steady. 10 minutes before the segment, a runner popped in. "We're on in 10. You'll be mic'd up in 2. That's when Jasmine stood up, tucked the folder under her arm, and walked to the hallway where the producer was waiting. "Quick thing," she said in a low voice. "I have a document I'd like to hand to the moderator during the segment. It's relevant to what we're discussing. Nothing inflammatory, just information." The producer raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Understood, as long as it doesn't derail the segment." "It won't," Jasmine replied. "It'll clarify it." She stepped into the studio without fanfare. She didn't look around, didn't try to read the room. She already knew what it would feel like. Controlled, staged, and a little too excited for a fight. Karoline was already seated, mic on, fixing her hair in the monitor. "Oh, you finally brought notes," Karoline said, her voice just low enough to sound snide, but still loud enough for everyone to hear. Jasmine didn't flinch. "Always have," she said, sitting down. "Just didn't need them for you." It was quiet for a beat. One of the camera techs stifled a cough. A few of the crew exchanged glances. Karoline's smirk thinned. The moderator gave the usual rundown. Who'd be introduced first, what topics were being covered, when to break. Jasmine nodded politely. She didn't care much about the outline. The moment she was preparing for wasn't listed in the schedule. It was something no one had penciled in. 3 minutes before airtime, Jasmine checked her mic, clipped it properly, and opened the folder once more, reviewing just one line from the memo that had been eating at her since the moment she read it. If they defend themselves too quickly, call it emotional. If they pause, call it rehearsed. Either way, they lose. She whispered the words to herself, not out loud, not as a statement, as a reminder. When the countdown began, 5, 4, 3, Jasmine inhaled slowly and blinked once. She wasn't here for payback. She wasn't even here for justice. She was here for clarity. But clarity doesn't always land gently. And what was about to happen next would leave even the producers questioning if they should have ever booked them together. The camera light turned red. They were live. The moderator greeted the audience with the usual opening, polished, composed, practiced. He introduced both guests, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett from Texas and former White House Assistant Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. Polite smiles, a nod from Karoline, a measured look from Jasmine. The first few questions were predictable: border security, budget policy, education spending. Karoline jumped in early, speaking fast, framing herself as the voice of reason in a sea of so-called chaos. She barely paused between points. Every sentence ended like it was meant to be a tweet. Jasmine let her speak. Then came the fifth question, on national rhetoric and political discourse. Congresswoman Crockett, the moderator asked, how do we move forward when the conversation keeps turning into personal attacks? Jasmine didn't rush. She tapped her pen against the folder once, then looked directly at the moderator. I think the better question, she said, is who benefits from those personal attacks and how they're being orchestrated. Karoline tilted her head. Is that supposed to mean something? Jasmine looked at her calmly. You tell me. She opened the folder, pulled out the memo, and handed it across the desk to the moderator. This is a real document, she said, her tone steady. It's from Ms. Leavitt's own team, a strategy paper focused on discrediting women in Congress, especially black women, not by debating ideas, but by attacking personality. It suggests provoking us, then framing our reaction as weakness. Karoline blinked, caught off guard. She gave a short, bitter laugh. This is nonsense. It's fake. Jasmine didn't argue. You can read it for yourself. It's dated, signed, and reviewed internally by 2 senior members of her media team. It names me and 2 other representatives. It labels us as too reactive, easy to spin, and emotionally unstable when cornered. The moderator glanced at the document, his brow creased. I didn't come here to perform, Jasmine said. I came here to ask why this kind of political playbook is acceptable. Why does this pass for strategy? Why are we calling people emotional instead of asking why they're reacting in the first place? Karoline leaned forward, her voice rising. This is exactly what you people do. Make everything about race, about gender. You don't have facts, so you cry victim, on cue. It's pathetic. The studio tensed. Jasmine didn't blink. I'm not crying, she said. I'm stating facts. You're proving my point for me. Karoline's tone snapped. You set this up. You planned it. You knew this would go viral. You don't care about truth. You care about headlines. Jasmine raised an eyebrow. You're angry because the headline's yours now. Karoline stood up. The producers in the control room scrambled to figure out what to do. One gestured to cut the feed. Another shook their head. This was gold for ratings.
If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments so we know what you think, subscribe to the channel so you never miss more videos like this, and definitely share it with your friends.
The moderator tried to redirect, but Karoline kept going. You ambushed me with fake documents. You want to make it about identity because you can't handle a real debate. Jasmine leaned forward slightly, voice even. Real debates require honesty. If you want to win on ideas, stop hiding behind manipulation. At that point, the panel broke down. The moderator called for a commercial break, but the cameras kept rolling for several seconds longer than they should have. That extra footage? It made it online within 30 minutes. Karoline yanking off her mic, throwing it on the floor, muttering something about, this always happens when you let them talk too long. The word them hit like a match to dry grass. Within an hour, the hashtags were trending. Hashtag Crockett called it. Shouted Karoline cracked. The memo. Twitter exploded. So did YouTube. People pulled up screenshots, zoomed into the memo as it aired, started connecting dots. Journalists began digging. Former staffers leaked email chains confirming the memo's existence. The document was real, but even more powerful than the paper itself was how Jasmine handled it. She didn't yell, she didn't gloat. She just let the facts breathe. But facts have a way of echoing louder after the shouting stops, and the silence that followed this broadcast was deafening. By Friday morning, the clip had already passed 3 million views. It wasn't just cable news picking it up anymore. It was podcasts, Reddit threads, Instagram reels, even group texts between people who hadn't watched cable in years. Everyone had something to say about the moment Jasmine Crockett calmly dropped the memo and let Karoline Leavitt unravel in real time. But what stuck wasn't the yelling. It wasn't the finger pointing or even the mic toss. It was the stillness. The way Jasmine barely moved, barely raised her voice, and still managed to flip the entire conversation on its head. In Dallas, a retired school teacher reposted the clip with the caption, "My whole career, I was told to stay calm while being provoked. Jasmine just showed the world what that really looks like." In Bakersfield, a college sophomore wrote, "This wasn't just political, it was personal. It's how people weaponize calmness and call it professionalism, only when it's convenient." And in Lansing, a campaign strategist for another rising congressional candidate admitted privately to a reporter, "That memo, variations of it exist everywhere. What's different is that Crockett didn't just expose a strategy, she exposed the silence around it." Karoline's camp scrambled to respond. First came a shaky PR statement late Thursday night calling the document inauthentic and part of a coordinated smear campaign. But by Friday afternoon, 2 former campaign aides had come forward confirming its authenticity. One even admitted that the phrase emotionally unstable when cornered was something they'd heard during staff meetings. That blew the door wide open. News anchors started asking harder questions. Who else uses these tactics? How long have campaigns leaned on personal attacks disguised as messaging strategies? And why did it take someone like Jasmine Crockett, measured, prepared, and unapologetically direct, to break the pattern? Karoline vanished from public view for 72 hours. No press appearances, no social media posts. According to one network insider, she nearly pulled out of an interview that had been scheduled weeks in advance. She was rattled. She had reason to be. Meanwhile, Jasmine didn't gloat. She didn't make the rounds or do the typical post-viral media blitz. Instead, she held a brief press conference outside a community center in Shreveport, Louisiana. "I didn't bring that document out to embarrass anyone," she told the crowd. "I brought it out because we've let too many things slide for too long. We've laughed off disrespect. We've played along to keep it civil, and we've paid the price for it." She paused, looked directly into the camera. "You don't have to yell to be loud. You don't have to fight dirty to tell the truth. And you don't have to let people define you just because they can't outthink you." That clip became the second most watched moment of the week. Commentators started revisiting old panel clips, segments where women had been interrupted, talked down to, or dismissed as too emotional when they stood up for themselves. The Crockett-Leavitt exchange had peeled something back, and people couldn't stop looking underneath. It wasn't just a viral moment. It was a shift in how people saw political dialogue and who they were finally willing to listen to. But Jasmine never set out to go viral. What she really wanted people to see hadn't come out yet, and when it did, it would hit even deeper. 3 days after the panel, a reporter from a mid-sized station in Toledo did something most of the national outlets didn't. She reached out to the woman who originally leaked the memo. Her name was Dana Haskins, a former junior communications assistant on Karoline Leavitt's campaign team. 27 years old, fresh out of grad school, first political job. She hadn't spoken to anyone since the memo blew up. Not publicly, not anonymously, nothing. But when the reporter called, Dana answered on the first ring. "I couldn't sit on it," she said quietly, voice shaking. The longer I watched what they were doing behind closed doors, the way they talked about Crockett, Bowman, even Luna, it stopped feeling like politics. It felt like a setup. Like we were planning character assassinations before even reading their bills. Dana explained she hadn't just leaked the memo on impulse. She'd saved it, reread it, sat with it for days. Then she waited until the segment was confirmed. She knew Crockett would be on that panel. She didn't know what Jasmine would do with the memo, if anything, but she hoped she'd do more than just read it. She hoped she'd expose the thinking behind it. "I wanted someone to show that these tactics weren't accidental," Dana told the reporter. "They were deliberate, and they were meant to silence people who already had to fight twice as hard to be heard." When Jasmine's office caught wind of the article, they contacted Dana privately. No press release, no media frenzy, just a simple message. "Thank you for having the courage we're all told to suppress." Later that evening, Jasmine did a live Q&A online. No handlers, no scripts, just her in her home office, wearing a plain t-shirt and talking straight to the camera. Someone asked, "Why didn't you go harder? You could have destroyed her." Jasmine paused, took a sip of water, and leaned in a little. "Because I didn't need to destroy her," she said. "The truth doesn't need to be dressed up. It doesn't need glitter or yelling or cheap shots. It just needs space." Another viewer asked what she hoped would happen next. "Honestly," she said, voice softer now, "I hope people think twice before writing someone off as angry or irrational just because they didn't like how they were challenged. I hope campaigns stop hiring firms to come up with new ways to invalidate people. And I hope the next time a woman in this position stays calm while being disrespected, someone notices." The chat was flooded with comments. "Respect. This is leadership." She didn't have to yell. She won the whole country over whispering. The power of that moment wasn't just what Jasmine revealed. It was how she revealed it. On a stage built for sound bites, she gave people silence. And in that silence, the truth echoed. Karoline resurfaced a few days later with a pre-recorded apology video that barely scratched the surface. She blamed her outburst on stress and miscommunication. The memo? She called it unauthorized and claimed she never read it. It didn't land. Too many people had seen the clip. Too many recognized the pattern, and too many had finally found language for what they'd been experiencing for years. Jasmine didn't respond to Karoline's video. She didn't need to, because the memo had done something more powerful than tear down an opponent. It held a mirror to an entire system, and people finally stopped looking away. But the weight of change doesn't come from a single moment. It comes from what people decide to do after it passes. It was nearly 2 weeks after the broadcast when Jasmine Crockett spoke at a local town hall in Tyler, Texas. The venue wasn't large, just over 100 chairs, half of them filled with seniors, young organizers, and a few curious folks who'd only recently learned her name through a viral clip. There were no reporters, no lighting rigs, just a woman in a navy blazer, standing in front of a folding table with a mic that crackled every so often. During the Q&A, an older woman in the second row raised her hand. Her voice was slow but sharp. "I watched what happened."
Before you leave this video, pause. Not just physically, pause within. Take a breath. Let these words settle into your heart. You came here for a reason. Maybe you're tired, maybe you're searching, maybe you're just trying to feel seen. And let me tell you, you are. You matter. Your growth, your healing, your dreams, they matter. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to be perfect. You just need the courage to keep going. One step. One choice. One day at a time. Most people stop when life gets hard. But you're not most people. You're still here. Still growing. Still rising. And that is strength. You've survived things that tried to break you, and you're still standing. That makes you powerful. Your past does not define you. Your pain is not your identity. Your future is still unwritten, and it's waiting for the version of you who refuses to quit. Progress is quiet. It happens in the small choices. Choosing discipline over distraction, healing over hiding, showing up even when it's hard. That's how transformation happens. And if you're doubting yourself right now, hear this: you are enough. Not one day, today. The world doesn't need a perfect version of you. It needs the real, rising, resilient you. So make the choice to keep moving. Take that one step. Read the book. Have the conversation. Believe again. Because small steps add up, and one day, you'll look back and realize, you've become the person you once dreamed of. Like this video if you're choosing yourself today. Comment your biggest takeaway. Subscribe if you're serious about your growth. Share this with someone who needs it. This journey won't be easy, but it will be worth it. You are not alone. You are capable. You are powerful. Let this moment be your turning point. Until next time. Stay grounded. Stay motivated. Stay unstoppable.